All right, this is our 2025 production Frameworks downhill bike. This one's built up for a set of race this coming weekend at the Rock Creek Pro Downhill Series. It was on display all weekend at Windrock, so it's a bit dusty. But just want to go through the specs and changes from our 2024 production bike. These bikes are available for purchase on our website now, shipping in early May. So what's different about them? Some minor kinematic changes based on everything we learned racing last season, and some very minor geometry changes. The kinematic changes are mainly increasing the starting leverage ratio to work better with the air shock. The air shock is something that the racers on our team really liked. They liked the tunability of the shock to be able to optimize it for each track, adding just a few PSI if they needed to change spring rate, adding volume spacers to change the way the shock ramped up. And to make these shocks work better, we increased the starting leverage ratio to make them feel more sensitive. That paired with the 2026 Fox Float X2 makes this shock feel almost as sensitive as a coil with all that tunability I just mentioned. So the most forward position is the same as our progressive position from last year. And then you have two more progressive positions. The starting leverage ratios are 3.35, 3.45, or 3.55 to 1, and all of them finish at 2.3 to 1. We moved the rocker pivot mount to the mainframe a little bit to get a more consistent anti-rise value. Starting anti-rise doesn't change a lot from our bike last year. It's still around 70 to 75%, depending on your center of gravity, but it's consistent all the way through the travel. Geometry changes. We went from a 63.25 degree head angle to a 63 degree head angle. I preferred it a touch steeper when I was designing the bike, and the riders on the team asked for it to be just a touch slacker. The size large has a 15 mil longer head tube. We were all running a lot of spacers underneath our top crown, and this kind of solved that problem for us. Construction-wise, we pretty much mirrored everything we did in our production enduro frames. We used this same styled one-piece bottom bracket lug, but the design of it's a little bit different. It's optimized more for weight now, and it has 3 positions with no flip chip. It uses just a nylock nut and a steel bolt, which is something that if you were in a pinch, you could get at any hardware store. We use the best quality 12.9 stainless steel bolts in our production bikes, but for example, I was in Costa Rica, I was swapping a bunch of stuff and stripped out one of the bolts, and I went to the hardware store in Costa Rica and they had the bolt that I needed, and I got to race the next day with that bolt. I think it's still in my bike now. The link is now a bit shorter and it's 2 pieces. There's no bridge on the link. The kinematics we were chasing allowed us to go for a shorter link, and not having the connection maybe makes the bike a little bit more flexible. Shortening it makes it stiffer, and then no bridge makes it flex more, so it doesn't feel a whole lot different. It's not a complete apples to apples comparison, but the link design is more simple and it works. We also use the bolt-on cable guides on the down tube gusset. Those cable guides just give a clean finish to the bike. The shock's also centered in the bike now. I think that makes the link stronger. We've always gone for a slightly offset shock to run the piggyback sideways, but on a DH bike, we've learned that we don't need to. We have plenty of clearance for the crank, and you could, depending on what shock you have, run it either way. So we still have it at the piggyback at a 90 and the heavy side mounted to the mainframe, but you could flip the shock where the reservoir is either on the right or the left side of the bike. And the shock being compressed completely in the center of the frame should make it a bit stronger. The head tube is now ZS56, ZS56. Last year we wanted to go for that ZS62 lower cup so we could do longer reach adjusts without adding any axle to crown stack, but it proved to be more of a pain in the ass than it was worth. We had to make our own reaming tool. We didn't like the quality of reams we were getting out of that tool, so we just went for the standard ZS56 56. We can buy a Park Tool reaming tool that works great, and it uses the most common downhill headset. We still can offer up to 10 mil reach, but if you go for 10, you're gonna have a little bit of added stack height. Other than that, the bike's all the same, uses the same hardware, same tubing we were using last year. Rides very similarly, just a minor improvement from everything we learned over the past year. I think the biggest thing that you'll notice on this bike is the 2026 Float X2. These shocks are the best shocks I've ever ridden. They're a huge step forward from anything that I was riding last year. All of our bikes come spec'd with that shock. The frame with the shock we're selling for $38.99. You can add a headset to your order. So that's it. Anything else, Logan? Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting the Frameworks program.